It's quite the find. Hello friends, and welcome back to Crow's Thrifty Finds. My name is Melanie. So for this week's video, we are going to talk about one of my most favorite things to sell, and that is toys. So we're going to talk about toys that are bolos, if you will. They're things you want to look out for. They're very likely out there when you're at garage sales, yard sales. It's finally garage sale season time here in North Dakota, and I am so excited, and I'm already finding really awesome stuff. So let's talk about these toys that are great sellers on eBay. So first off, I'm going to talk about Trash Pack. The Trash Pack, I believe it's from early 2000s, but yeah, there's two variations of it. There's Trash Pack and then there's Grocery Gang. Either are good, and they're these teeny tiny little kind of squishy figures, and they have little vehicles that they go in. There's different sets. They sell great in lots. If you can find them new, they sell excellent. I know I got my hands on a new one maybe a couple of years back, and I think I sold it for around $60. But yeah, there's a lot of different variations of these, but whenever you see those little squishy guys, you want to pick those up. The figures are worth money. Some of them individually are even worth in the $100 range. These are really, really good toys that you want to get, that people want. Next, we're talking the 90s, one of my favorite decades, since that's when I grew up. Polly Pocket. I know I had a couple of Polly Pocket sets in the 90s, and this is something that I actually acquired recently. What I want to emphasize with Polly Pockets, though, is it's all about the vintage Polly Pockets. Polly Pockets are still made to this day, but you all want to be looking out for the late 80s, early 90s Polly Pockets, because that is where the money is, and there is big money. There are rare Grail sets that exist. If you have complete ones, they sell in the hundreds. I've got a lot currently listed that the auction will be ending this weekend, and I've got it listed at $850. I purchased it for $45 recently off Marketplace. I mentioned it in my short recently, but hoping somebody bids on that. I'm not expecting a huge bidding war. That's kind of what I think they're valued at for what's in there, but you never know. So I'm crossing my fingers. I'll let y'all know in a future video how that auction goes. But yes, Polly Pocket is really, really good. You want to find Polly Pocket that's vintage. You want to pick it up. You want to buy it. You're going to make some money. Next, another 90s item. I think this was early 90s, possibly even late 80s, but I believe that the 90s. These are food fighters. So these are like food ninjas. I don't know how else to describe them, but they're these rubber figures. They're even kind of squishy, but not really, more just like hollow rubber figures. And they're shaped like different foods. And of course, there's more rare variations than others. They sell fantastic in lots. Individually, the common ones will sell in the 20s, but these are things you're very possibly going to find in a box for 50 cents, a quarter at a yard sale. So I almost said Foo Fighters, like the band. But yeah, the Food Fighters are great pickups. So definitely be on the lookout for those. The next item is probably going to be the newest item on this list, Tayo. Tayo is on YouTube. I may have mentioned this before in a very early video, but I recognize that I've got a decent amount of videos out now and not everybody's maybe watched all of them. So maybe it's okay to repeat myself once in a while, but this is a good one to find. This is a newer toy. Tayo is made mostly in Korea, but again, kids like to watch it on YouTube, and I know my kids watched it, so we bought a Tayo garage. It was not easy to get our hands on one, and we were lucky enough to score one off of Amazon, but again, very hard to find. So if you happen to find somebody selling one of these because their kids have slightly outgrown it, because I know my kids have outgrown it, so we're getting to that point where you might start seeing some of these for sale. The garage with the buses, which is what I personally own, can sell between $50 and $80. So do examine the screen and see what it looks like, and be on the lookout for Tayo. It's very bold colors. Next, we are going to talk about another 90s toy, one that I personally had. I had a blue one. Skip It. Lots of fun. They still make these to this day, I'm pretty sure, or at least variations of it, but the vintage Skip Its are where it's at. I have gotten one of these before that I got at a garage sale, and I sold it for around $50. That's about what they go for, the vintage ones, $40 to $50 range. So do make sure that it's vintage and pick those up if you see them, because they are definitely worth finding. And it's one of those things, again, somebody will probably have for sale for pretty cheap. A lot of people don't know the value of these vintage toys and just let them go. So it's your job to find it and scoop it up and make some money. Next, we're going to talk about one of the older items on this list. Vinyl figures. These were the Funkos before there were Funkos. And these vinyl figures from the 60s, they go for a variety of money. But if you find the rare ones, they can go in the hundreds, the high hundreds, almost $1,000 range. These are valuable. So I'm not going to single one out in particular, but I'm going to show you a list here, and just encourage you all to look up on eBay vinyl figures 60s and look at completed and sold items, and you will see that these are definitely worth being on the lookout for. And again, something that could possibly just be in a box somewhere, and you can make a huge return on these. So definitely something to be on the lookout. I always imagine finding one of these like super, super dirty and then having to clean it and then making a bunch of money. But yes, vinyl figures, 60s. Keep your eyes out. Next, we're going to talk about small soldiers. This was from the 90s. There was a movie. There may have been a TV show. I'm not totally positive. Don't quote me on it. But small soldiers was a thing. And they were popular, and still, people are looking for them in different variations of the toys to this day. Many sell in the hundreds. It just all depends on which figures you have. But if you see military guys, you want to look them up. That they may not always be valuable, but if they're small soldiers, they very likely could be valuable. So if you see action figures, worth looking up. Could get them for a very low price and get high returns. Next item is Thomas the Train. And now there's Thomas the Train, all kinds of stuff. And what I'm going to highlight specifically is the sets, the train sets. There are rare variations of these. There's die cast, there's wooden. The wooden ones do very well. There's also die cast trains that are made to go on the wooden tracks that also sell very well. It's one of those things you have to look up. I picked up one at an estate sale recently, and I was thinking it was going to be really valuable, and then I looked it up and it wasn't worth anything. So it just really depends on what you have. But if you get a good lot of the wooden ones and the wooden tracks, you're going to be able to make some money on that. Just always look up the comps, make sure that it's, what you're paying is worth it, for whatever profit margin you like to make. But I do encourage you all to look out, because there is some big money in Thomas the Train. I even looked up some Thomas the Train DVDs, and they were selling for some good money. So yeah, Thomas the Train is worth looking up. Next is Puppy in My Pocket. This is from the 90s. There might have been a kitty variation as well, but I'm going to just talk about Puppy in My Pocket right now. Lots of Puppy in My Pocket sell very well. This is kind of along the lines of Littlest Pet Shop. It's small little figures, and they have little beds that they go in. I know I had some as a kid. Something you want to look for new. They sell really well if you find them new, but even if you find them used, the lots go, in the $50 range. So definitely something worth looking out for. Next, we have something again from the 90s, Crash Test Dummies. Who remembers those commercials? Don't be a dummy, buckle your seatbelt. Those, do you remember those? I know I do. But Crash Test Dummies put out a bunch of toys. I got some action figures in a vehicle last year that I made, I think, around $50 on. So it's something I would recommend you all to look out for. There's all kinds of different toys, though. So if you see Crash Test Dummies toys in general, keep your eyes peeled and look them up because they're worth picking up most of the time. The next item is something that, I'd love to learn more about. There's so much to know about it. There's a huge collector's market for it. I am just not educated very well in this area, but I want to encourage you all to educate yourself because there are huge profits in these, and that is marbles. Yes, we're talking those little glass marbles. Those are super valuable if you find the right ones. And again, I can't speak on this too much as I don't know much about marbles. I just know that there's many that are valuable. So if you're getting into toys and that, you want that to be your market, marbles are worth looking into and learning more about and educating yourself. It's on my to-do list. I just haven't gotten it done yet, but just letting you all know that marbles can sell in the thousands, even just for one marble. If you find those, and you never know, it could be at an estate sale. Somebody's just got a jar of marbles that they don't know a thing about, that they just had since the dawn of time. You can make money on those, huge money. Just depends on what you got. So marbles, learn about them. And I'm telling that to myself too. Next is something that I think a lot of people know about already, but just, some of you are new, and it's good to let you know. Muscle Men, and this is MUSCLE, big capital letters, men. They're these little pink guys. They're about like this big. And there's ones that also come in other colors. But Muscle Men are great sellers. They sell great in lots. Of course, there's rare figures that you could sell individually. So I would encourage that if you find a lot of them, you want to look each one up just to make sure that they aren't any of the rare ones. But if they're not, doesn't matter. Muscle Men of all kinds sell, and they sell for good money. I find that the ones that aren't pink, that come in other colors, do even better. But it just seems to me in general that small figures that are from the 90s, 80s, these little figures, there's so many different ones that sell for good money. It's not just Muscle Men, it's Monster in My Pocket. It's Homies, which I've discussed in other videos. Just for whatever reason, these teeny little figures, people like them, people want them, people collect them. So look up Muscle Men because they are fantastic to sell. If you find them new, you'll make hundreds of dollars. There's money to be made with Muscle Men. And that completes the list. So remember to like and subscribe if you haven't already. And again, my name is Melanie. I make content every week. The channel's name is Crow's Thrifty Finds. I'll see you next week.